Hi, so here we are again in the studio. Today I want to talk to you about mediums. Now, this is the number one thing that gets everyone blocked. You can imagine yourself, and this might have even happened to you, where you're standing in the store and there are shelves and shelves of different mediums, and you don't know what to do. What are these things? What are mediums? Why do I even need to use them? Because it's a more of an expense, the way things are going with our grocery bills nowadays. Yeah, that's a good question. And so a lot of times people just walk away. But I can tell you, if the number one thing today you learn about and you start doing is adding mediums to your acrylics, you're going to thank me for it. This is going to just really propel your painting to a new dimension. So first of all, we're going to just switch to the desktop here, and we're going to talk about what are mediums. Now, I think Liquitex at last count had over 40 different types of mediums. That's a lot. And what mediums do is they can manipulate your paint properties. They expand what you are able to do with the paint. So what they can do is they can change the texture, they can change the viscosity, they can change the sheen, and also the drying time. And you can also use mediums for special effects. So what I'm going to talk about today, because there, as I said, there's over 40. So let's simplify it. When I'm teaching a class, these are the mediums I usually tell people to take. I usually tell them to get one that's a liquid. And so what that means is that, you can hear it shake, and another one that's a gel. And I'm going to just talk about these basic mediums, right? They're not basic. I shouldn't use that word because Liquitex does have a line that's basic. These are the professional grade mediums. We can talk about that some other day about the difference. But okay, so what is a medium? Well, the way to think about mediums is to say, you know what? It's just colorless paint because this is already, look at this. I didn't even open that up. Brand new, woohoo, the unveiling. So they have these little seals at the top, just that's a brand new bottle, just so that it preserves it when it's shipping. I just brought a whole bunch of mediums back home and they were partially used, so I had to do this with tape, packing tape. But there we go. So we just take that off. It's like those unboxing videos. Oh, that's so exciting. Let's put that over to the side. These have flip lids, which I really quite like. Now, this is a gloss medium. As I was saying, the medium is in the paint. And so when you pour it out, because it's liquid, you can see it's moving, you know, slowly, like it's kind of like syrup, if you can see that. And so the medium, the way I like to think about it is just colorless paint because this is already in the paint. Now, as I said, it changes the viscosity. So let's talk about that first. That's a gloss. Let's take a gloss gel to show you the difference. I'm not going to add paint today. Today, we're just going to talk about medium. And I see there's some schmutta on my knife here from something I was doing before. So let me just clean that off so we don't get that in there. So right away, you look at these two different ones. This is the gloss gel. And you know it's a gloss gel. Everything's color coded for you. So it has this label. This is actually an older label. The newer labels are like this for the gels. Okay, they have that red on it. You can see a bit of the tape what I told you when I was transporting this, I taped it shut, but they have that bright red on it. And so this is a gel. Oh, yeah, look like that. And you remember those commercials about Dippity Doo. It's the gels have, peaks on them. It has body. Whereas when you go to the liquid ones, they're fluid and smooth. So the first thing is that they have different characteristics to them. Some people think, well, why don't I just buy this and then add more water, take the gel, add more water, and then I can save money. But that's not how it's done. They actually are formulated with an acrylic polymer. There is water in the manufacture of acrylic, but when it evaporates, it turns clear. So it's the water molecules that are making it look white right now. If you look at acrylic under a microscope, it's kind of cool. What happens is that the molecules look almost like little stop signs, okay? That type of hexagon shape. And so you can imagine that's the acrylic film. And so you can add this to acrylic and it just continues. It'll be fine. So you don't ever have to think, oh, am I adding too much medium? Because it's always acrylic bonds to acrylic, no problems, whether it's the gel or this one. Now, if I start adding water to this, the recommendation is you can actually use water. You don't want to use no more than 25%, because then what happens is that it starts to break down. And that's not something that you want for your acrylics. You can see sometimes where beginners are using a lot of water in their paint and it just looks flat, it kind of sinks in a little bit. It's not luscious. And so, as I said, it's the single most important thing is that you go, instead of thinning my paint with water, I'm going to use this acrylic polymer to thin it out. And then you're going to find your colors are so much better. They're going to be more brighter, more translucent. It's just going to look sexier. Okay. So let's talk about these individually. So let's go to the gloss medium first, okay? So we'll put the gloss gel one. We're going to put it back in its cage. Okay, we'll talk about this one first. So one of the things we said that adding this to your paint, what it'll do is it changes the nature of your paint. So if you have a fluid paint and you add this to it, it makes it more fluid. If you have a heavy body, that's my favorite type of paint, you add this to it, it can make it, less heavy and again, more fluid. And there's different things and applications that you can do for that. I am practicing for a video, an online class about that. And so as my practice, I'll be pulling up different things and showing you, real examples of that. So it changes the texture, the viscosity of your paint. It can also change the sheen. So, and again, this is a very personal thing. So this is just, I don't know how well you can see here. I took this gold paper for a reason, because I thought maybe online that'll show up. This first one, you can see if you go on the side, some of the brush strokes. If you didn't like that, I put that on in a hurry. I used a stiff brush. You could use a softer brush and that would be fine. But what happens is that it brings up some of the color. You can see from here, I don't, can you kind of see that? It's a little bit hard online. But yeah, here you can see where this one, it is glossier than that one. And so it brings up the sheen and changes it, makes it glossy, intensifies the color. And all the while you're adding that gloss to your paint, it just, deepens the color. It just, some people really like that. This one on the other side, I had an ultra matte, and so I put that on there just to show you. It's kind of interesting. If I think you can even hear it. Okay, so hear a vision. Can't hear that one. Can't hear that one. Can hear that one, because what happens is that they take the gloss. Gloss is the natural state of the polymer resin, and then they add matting agents to it. And this one, they've added quite a few matting agents. You can see it fogs the color a little bit, and so that's something that you might want to be aware of. Sometimes you use that to your advantage. You could use that, and you could even mix it with something like a pouring medium, which is a self-leveling medium, and this ultra matte, and end up with something that looks a lot like a caustic or wax. So the sheen, and the satin sheen isn't on here yet because I'm still waiting for that sample to come. But so it can change how your paint looks. Is it shiny, or maybe you don't like it so shiny? That's something that I used to have a real bias against. I hated the matte medium. I always wanted everything to look glossy. And then one time I was in the gallery and I'm looking up, and they hung my paintings way up here. And the way they were lit, I thought, oh, they look awful, because they were shiny and glary. And I thought, oh, I've got to do something about that. So then I started using matte varnishes, and then from that, matte mediums. And I have to say, I've kind of fallen in love with them. So that's entirely up to you. It's not for me to say, oh, you have to use this one. The reason that there's such a range of these is so that you can decide which one suits you best. The other thing that adding that to your paint, and it's with all the mediums, if you add this to your paint, it makes your paint more translucent, more transparent. Sometimes you can use this for applications like making a glaze, or sometimes you want to put a thin layer over something else that you have, just changing the temperature. That's a good medium to use for that. It also, because you're adding the medium to the paint, it changes the drying time of the paint as well. Okay, so that was that one. When you look at, this is the matte medium, look at, also is brand new. Look at that, not opened. I should really have prepped for this little talk. That's okay. Here, we're just off. Talk amongst yourselves. There we go. So I'm not going to pour that out, but I'll just let you look at it. You'll see again, it's the same type of stuff. It looks white right now, but when it dries, it's going to dry a little bit more clear. The matte isn't as clear as the gloss medium. And then there's one in between that's a satin medium. And you could mix all these mediums together and just see what happens. It's okay. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the gloss gel. There's different kinds. As I said, there's a satin gel and a gloss gel. With the liquid ones, they come with this green label, and with the gels, they come with a red label. If you see that's an old label, you want to look for ones that are this new bright label. Now, with the gels, we said, okay, so what does a medium do? Well, you can take this gel, add it to your paint, and it's the same thing as this. It's going to make the paint a little bit more transparent. Depends how much of a ratio of paint to gel, and there's no magic number there. That's becomes a lot about your style and what you want to do with the paint. But if you add some of that to the paint, it also extends your paint. When you look at a tube of paint, the most expensive part of that tube happens to be the pigment. Okay, that's expensive. So when you're looking at a paint tube, you're going, wow, there's, that costs us so much. And there's different costs because that depends on the different level of pigments and the cost of the pigments that you have to source. And there's actually, I think that would be a cool job where you get to go out and you get to buy pigments from around the world and find the best quality and, what works best. And, you have your chemist talking to you and saying, no, that one's not as good as, the other one, go back. Anyways, my little imaginings of a pigment buyer. But when you look at paint, that's the most expensive thing. And that pigment is across the board, whether you're painting in oil or watercolor, or gouache or acrylic. And then you have the glue that keeps the pigment in there. That's called the binder. And as we said, the medium here, that's the binder, that's the glue. So it's a polymer resin. And so when you look at having you have your paint laid out and you're thinking, I always tell my class, take off the price tags because you don't need to know that or remember that, but you're looking, oh, this is so expensive. If you buy a big tub of medium and mix that into your colors, it's going to extend your paint. That means your paint lasts longer. So that's a really good tip. And so I'm trying to hit to the other one. This is sticky keys today. There we go. So you can add paint to this. It's changing the texture of your paint. If you add this paint, if you have a more liquid type paint and you add this to it, it's going to bulk it up. It's going to make it thicker. It's also the paint is going to it still maintains its paint adhesion. So you don't have to worry about, is there a ratio that I have to mind? It's like, no, that just becomes about how transparent do you want your paint to be. There's a color depth that you're going to notice. It also, because you're adding that to the paint, it's a real bonus for beginners because it slows down your drying time. So I have people sometimes who look at my palette, and my students are apt to tell me, you're always telling, in fact, I've said this so much, they've made me an apron that says that, and it's like bigger brushes and more paint. That's a beginner mistake when you're working where people just aren't putting enough paint out. And of course, you're worried because you think, oh, I paid how much for this tube and it's going to dry out. Well, put some medium in it. And when you mix that medium right away into the paint, it extends the drying time. It's not going to dry as much. And you want to make sure you have enough paint on your palette that you can actually paint. Okay, important tip. So the gel. So as we said, what are mediums? Mediums are actually colorless paint. It's the polymer that's already in the paint. You can use them to change the sheen of things. It increases the drying time, changes the viscosity, which is a big fancy word for the thickness or thinness of the paint. They're also, I haven't shown you with this video, but you can also change the texture of your paint as well. And so there are different mediums, like sand medium or ceramic mediums, or the different paste, the modeling paste, and it changes the texture of the paint as well. I'm going to be showing you a bit more of that later on. Just a quick note before we go. As I said, it doesn't matter how much of this medium you add, and you can even take these mediums and put them together and get, a custom somewhere in the middle type of mixture. You can put these on right into the paint. You can put this on your substrate, on your canvas, and texture it, let it dry, and then paint on it. They're just so versatile. There are also a couple of different additives in the Liquitex line, and additives are different because they don't have the acrylic resin that these do. And so or they have less of that. So because of that, you have to be aware of how much you add. And I know one of them is a flow improver, which I told one of my students about and they fell in love with. There's also slow dry additives. There's a slow dry medium, which is okay. It doesn't have enough to change it. But if you buy the additive separately and you add it in, you have to be careful. If you add too much of the additive, the paint gets sticky, and no one wants sticky paint. Okay, so I hope that this was helpful. Thanks for being my audience. Because I need to practice these presentations, I kind of feel like I'm out of practice with Zoom. I hope that the one thing that you learned today, that if you add mediums, it'll improve your painting quality. And I'm going to have some other videos just talking about highlight some of the different mediums and show how it can help with your blending. I really want to focus in on how it helps with edges in acrylic. So keep watching, you'll see that soon. Bye-bye.